I've been a part of this process since the very first literacy work group with Representative Price, Representative Kelly, Senator Pavlo, and Senator Hansen. I've gotten a chance to meet and talk with a lot of people in the field, a lot of people. And that's important because the field is where this is implemented. This is where we will find out as to whether or not it's going to work or not. So yesterday, as part of the conference report, I offered 3 amendments, and I want to talk about what I think is missing from these bills, which I was seeking to correct yesterday. The first is that there is a provision that used to be in this bill, as it was before us in this chamber last, that would have allowed an advocate. And in the case of the bill from the Senate, they had chosen a teacher and a principal. I think those are fine advocates on behalf of a student. They understand the student's reading level. They work with the student. You could have had other advocates as well, but the important thing is that the bill doesn't have an advocate. It doesn't provide for an advocate for a student to be exempted from the retention if it is determined that that's the best option for the student. And this is a problem. The bill allows for parents to exempt. But as we've all seen, and I've been on a lot of tours of schools with kids who come from very unfortunate economic circumstances. And we've heard a lot of stories, both sides of the aisle, about kids coming to school who are transient, who are homeless, who are outright poor. The bill does not do anything for them in terms of providing that advocate to exempt them from the retention. That's a huge concern. I want to think about that for a second. If you've got parents who are actively engaged in their child's educational career, which all parents should be, that kid is going to have a better shot of not being retained. And the kids who are poor, the kids who have parents who are less engaged or not engaged at all, to no fault of that student's, are going to be retained at a much higher rate. That is the biggest concern I have with this piece of legislation. The targeting of poor kids for retention. I'm really worried about that. The other thing I'll talk about, because my colleague on the other side of the aisle talked about moving the ball forward here, is there was a court case, judicial precedent, that set a precedent over and above state law, where the parents, on behalf of the students of Highland Park schools, sued the school district. And the day that this bill came out of committee, the Court of Appeals, by the way, declined to rule in favor of the students and the parents. And the day this bill came out of committee, the Supreme Court declined to hear the case and therefore set the precedent that schools do not have to provide the services guaranteed by law to students. That's what that precedent said. So in terms of moving the ball forward, as my colleague just mentioned, I'm not so sure that the services described in this bill are ever going to be provided to students because of that judicial precedent. The legislature is one of 3 branches of government, and the judicial branch has a check on us, and they exerted the check against what the legislative intent was for students to be provided literacy services. We tried to fix that yesterday in the conference committee. That was struck down. The third item is that this bill historically has always and exclusively been about literacy. And I tell you, everyone should be concerned about literacy. It is a critical thing. And despite the fact that we disagree on how to fix literacy in Michigan, we all owe a thanks to Amanda Price for pushing this ball forward in terms of bringing the topic up. But this bill has expanded its scope of practice. It now talks about mathematics, science, and social studies, and it puts in proficiency requirements around what those mean. And so for literacy to advance a student into fourth grade. The bill says that if you're a year or greater behind, and you can prove proficiency either through the state test, through a local test, or through a portfolio, then you can go forward in literacy. But in math, it doesn't give you those same options. It gives Johnny only the state assessment. So I think we've all seen that there are concerns about the state assessment from the field. Concerns about the time frame it comes back, concerns about the passage rates. There's a lot of questions out there, and it's an area of flux. I'm really worried that Johnny, who falls in this category where he is not at grade level in math, is then going to be held back because of that, in addition to. We've expanded the scope of practice when it comes to this bill, and I have a concern about that. This has been probably the most important topic, literacy, that any of us could ever tackle when it comes to education. We have a tremendous problem in Michigan about kids being illiterate or not being proficient. Unfortunately, this is not going to do it because of those reasons. And I think that we could get there. We've started that process, and I compliment Representative Kelly and Senator Hansen for putting dollars in the budget to pay for literacy coaches and pay for additional staff. It's not enough, unfortunately. So we're not adequately providing the areas that actually move the ball forward in the budget. And we've got these issues about the parents not being able to do anything to ensure their students are getting the services they need. We've got this issue about not having an advocate for poor kids. And we've got this issue about other subjects being introduced. So, Mr. Speaker, I've got no other choice but to encourage a no vote on this. The Senate sent something over here that we voted for that was a significant improvement over the House. That's changed, and other problems have been introduced. So I would strongly encourage a no vote. Thank you.